Well, good evening and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, May the 4th, 2026. We have three items on our agenda this evening for consideration. The first item being a sign code. I think one of our, or a couple of our council members requested that this be placed on for discussion and review. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. As the mayor indicated, we did have a request from a council member to place the sign code in front of you for a discussion this evening. Cliff Notes version of it is the same sign size applies to residential lawns as it does to agricultural properties in the city, with the idea that should the code be modified to allow larger signs on the larger agricultural properties. With that, I asked Mr. Gruss to do a little bit of research on this, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, sir. And good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mr. Fearborn mentioned, before you this evening and in front of you is a map of the city. The question that was forwarded to me here a few weeks ago was to review the city sign ordinance as it relates to temporary signs on agricultural properties. And so Mr. Fearborn and I and a few other staff members kind of got together and just to understand how much of the city is currently zoned agricultural, where those properties are at, how large they are. And I heard somebody over here talk about how many individual parcels these things really make up across the city. So the map in front of you is any parcel in the city that is currently zoned agricultural. A little bit of the history of kind of where the sign code is right now as the question was posed. The current maximum size for a temporary sign in an agricultural district mirrors what it is for typical neighborhoods, which is generally 3 to 4 square feet per sign, or you can go as large as, I believe it is 24 square feet if it is one sign. And so a little bit of the intent behind that and kind of the history of the previous sign code before. In our previous sign code, the maximum size for an agricultural property for a temporary sign was actually 64 square feet. So we did reduce it down to match what is the residential guidelines. And some of the reasoning behind that is more in line with, if you look at our zoning map, our future land use map, a lot of times you'll see these agricultural properties generally are aligned or follow the areas of what would be considered future residential growth. And so that was kind of the logic there, what is intended to be future residential neighborhoods. You really don't find a lot of agricultural properties that are on this map that are slated to be future shopping centers or commercial districts or anything of that nature. And so that was the kind of methodology behind where we drafted the signage regulations. A couple of the reasons that we felt that was important, for those of you that are familiar with our previous sign code, for temporary signs, while some of those regulations were content-based when the code was drafted, while it did allow up to a 64 square foot sign, there were kind of time, place, and manner provisions in there for what type of signage could go up at what time, how long those signs could be up, anything from a commercial message, which had some additional regulations in a non-commercial district. There was provisions for real estate signs. There was provisions for political signs. And as you all know, to update our sign code and to bring it into compliance, we had to take all those things out. And in essence, now you can have those signs out there regardless of what they say. There's really no special provisions based on the type of sign or what the message is. And so that was the other factor that we looked at when we drafted the sign code, since we lost some of the content protections, I'll use that word, but some of the things that would have provided additional regulations based on the type of sign that was being put out. One thing to consider in this proposed discussion, it's kind of an all or nothing deal. So I know the question that was posed, I think, had to do with a political sign that was coming up here for the August or November election. And so that was the other thing that we talked about, is that, if we do move in that direction, we have to think about what other things can go on those properties as well. It wouldn't be something that the council could necessarily just restrict to a certain type of sign or to a certain number of properties. Anything would apply to every agricultural property in the city. As I mentioned, just the proximity of these two residential subdivisions, like I said, staff kind of felt that they mirror more of that, trying to keep those properties more compatible with the rural or residential nature of those areas of the city compared to commercial signage regulations, which do permit larger signs on those properties. But again, in staff's perspective, those were more focused in the commercial corridors of the city, on our shopping centers and larger properties within the city. So I'm here to answer any questions, or if there's any discussion that can be had on what things that you would like staff to look at. That's kind of the background of why the sign code ended up the way that it did, the way we drafted it, with the size requirements in place, compared to what it was back in 2009 when we adopted the previous sign code at a little bit larger size. So that's kind of the research. If there's any specific questions, I can answer those, or if there's anything else you'd like staff to look into, report back, we can certainly do that as well.
Okay, thank you, David. All right. Anybody have any questions of David? Tom?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was curious, of course, we do have primaries coming up in August. We'd mentioned November, but August we will have elections again. Now, the small ones, I'm assuming, like we talked, no big deal when they go up, but then more people are kind of curious about the bigger signs going up for the August primaries that we've been discussing. So I guess that's still, what, a 2x4, and when it can go up or come down? I thought they were talking like 30 days up, 10 days down, 30 days up, and I'm not sure when it starts or ends before the August primary.
So a sign can go up at any time, whether it's an election sign for the upcoming ballot or any other type of support sign that a resident wants to put up. If they're in a commercial district, the maximum size is 32 square feet, so that's where we see some of the larger board signs that get put up. Commercial districts and multifamily properties do require a permit. Those fall under the same general guidelines as what a temporary sign falls under, which is it's only good for 30 days at a time. 10 days has to lapse in between that before the sign can go back up. Now, that is one of the differences as it relates to the agricultural properties right now.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, they fall into the same category as residential properties, so no permits required, and there's no time frame that's placed on those. And so that was the other thing. It provides a little more flexibility on those agricultural properties. While the size was decreased, the number of signs was increased with the sign code update, and the number of types of signs that can be put out there was increased as well.
Okay, and I got one other question. On the 2x4 signs, when you look at Lucy Webb in the past, some people would put them up on Lucy Webb, the 2x4s, not just the small ones. Remind me of how that works on main streets like Lucy Webb for those kind of signs, 2x4s or whatever.
You mean like the size or like a
Yeah,
two?
the size, 2 foot by 4 foot, the bigger signs people put up. I see sometimes on Lucy Webb, some few main streets, you see them popping up.
Yeah, so the road network really doesn't have any bearing on the signs that you can put up. It's all about the zoning of the property.
That's
And so in essence, you can have up to 4 signs on a residential property at any time. If you have 4 signs, they're limited to about 3 to 4 square feet each, which is the typical size. If you want to go larger, you can do that, but you have to reduce the number of signs that you put on your property. So basically, you can have fewer larger signs or more smaller signs on a property, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
to
that
give
makes
some
sense.
options.
I was just curious how that worked on those, on like Lucy Webb and stuff. So that's fine. Thank you.
And that's a maximum of 12 square feet, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. McDonald, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking up a couple things as we were sitting here and had a little time this last week to take a look at this. I personally have had a couple candidates running in the primary or November elections ask me about that as well, in regards to agricultural. And I mean, I guess for clarification, our existing code already sets agricultural side as its own zoning district, correct?
If you look at
For outside of signage.
it would be the same as any other, residential districts are on their own. There's different subsets of residential
Sure.
districts. But I would say the agricultural district is not any further out on its own than any other residential district, if I understand your question.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for our zoning districts, you have commercial districts, you have agricultural, residential. Agricultural is a standalone, correct?
It is, yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think just in general, that kind of makes, this makes sense, and potentially, adopting some changes on that, with our, a residential lot, we're looking at, just say, to pick a number, a 10,000 square foot lot, whereas in, our, an ag, we're looking at maybe 5 to 40 plus, acres of land somewhere. And so that would make sense. I think that our sign code probably aligns and lists that separately as well to align with the rest of our ag code. that was just a thought I had, and kind of looking up some of the information on that, and I appreciate the feedback there.
And Mr. Gress said it, but sometimes when he's talking development services speak, it's tough. One of the concerns that staff had with this one is on an while we totally get the relative size thing to the larger property and the fact that it would be easy because it is a unique zoning pattern to put that out. The issue of the content is always, and has been since the beginning when statute changed, the issue of the content has always been a real concern for staff. And so, just to pull one out of the air, all of those agricultural properties on Lucy Webb that we're talking about, the requests that came in, and Mr. Gressop probably fielded it from some of the same people who were in contact with you, actually came in, talked to the mayor. Mayor gave them to Mr. Gress. Mr. Gress was explaining where things are. Would be the concern that while we're talking about an election sign here, and the request was for a 32 square foot sign to be able to go up, so basically a sheet of plywood size, would be that when the election season is over, then for example, on the properties on Lucy Webb, Mr. Gress, how many 32 square foot signs would be allowed, say, on one property?
Under the current code, there would be a maximum of 4 signs year-round. During an election, there's the time frame of 30 days before, 5 days after. They can have up to 3 additional signs for a total of 7. And again, those fall under the same size restrictions as a neighborhood. But it'd be 4 and 7.
So not being able to restrict the content at any point in time and not being able to restrict the time frame except during election season, some of those properties could actually be selling signage at 4x8 looking out onto Lucy Webb year-round and use those as advertising signs that would be very large. Probably staff's main concern with the change would be that. And of course, we can't restrict the content in any way, shape, or form, or the time frame.
Okay, so if I'm correct, really the largest sign currently allowed on a residential property, including agriculture, is 24 square feet. Is that right, for a dual post sign?
I believe for a temporary sign, yes, that's
Yeah, for
correct.
temporary.
Yeah.
For temporary. So essentially the ask at this point has been increasing that by 8 square feet.
So,
'Cause
some of the background on that, because we had that question pop up during this past election. So we allow the larger sign, but it's based on how the sign's constructed. So most of the banner signs that we see put up for election are the kind of cardboard or the banner vinyl signs. And the intent behind allowing the larger sign with the construction is that when those signs get put out, particularly in a lot of these areas that are just kind of out there, the larger the sign and the material, it tends to act like a sail, right? And so a lot of times what you'll see is that sign's up for a few days, the wind knocks it down, and so it ends up being a code enforcement issue. And so the intent behind allowing the 24 square foot sign is that it's built of rigid posts and rigid material. It's driven into the ground. It makes it a little easier to withstand the elements. And so in addition to the number of signs, allowing larger banner signs kind of out on the fringe of the city would be a code enforcement concern for staff as well. Just as you see those signs kind of take the beating, if you will, from weather and wind and things like that.
If it were to be say a dual post, or one of these that is a rigid as opposed to a banner or something like that, I'd assume there's probably not a lot of difference in how the wind's going to affect a 32 and a 24, as long as it's constructed properly. Is that accurate?
We would absolutely want to make sure that if something that we're going to go in that would allow the 32, if the council wanted to entertain that, it would have to have the additional reinforcements.
Yeah.
Because you would be seeing things like mounted to a piece of plywood, and you just can't have that on a flimsy stand.
Yeah, I understand the wind shear is significant with anything, catching that much square feet. particularly the spring we've had.
I mean, it's an issue in the commercial districts as well. The easier part about those is that the business is there all day, so it's easier for us to give them a call. Hey, you need to fix your sign, and it's just easier for them to keep an eye on it, if you will, if it does become worn or tattered or broken. It's a little more difficult on agricultural properties where there's really nobody there. If it's, they're farming the property or whatever, they're not there every day. So there are more challenges to try and reach out to those individuals, and ultimately it usually ends up in the code enforcement officer having to take the sign because we just can't get in touch with that person if they're not there at the property every day.
Understood. I mean, essentially that's across the board with any of the signs though, right? It wouldn't necessarily be, only affect the larger signs, but probably have that issue with signs in general.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I do. I can't support any change to the sign code, especially for a one-time politician's request. It doesn't make any sense, and I get the theory that agricultural properties are larger than residential properties. My lot is larger than a standard residential lot. I live in rural estates, or rural residential, I apologize. An acre and a half. So do I get something in between? Are we gonna just muddy the waters with this? We just did this sign code not that long ago. I'm not sure where we're trying to revisit it other than one politician wants to have a larger sign, and then the next politician that comes along is gonna want a larger sign yet. It's equal play across the field. And to Mr. Fearborn's point, if I own one of these lots, and you'll notice not all these little platted lots that are listed as agriculture are all that big, right? I can put a sheet of plywood up and legitimately and legally be advertising for a strip club on 50 Highway, and the city can't do anything about it. And I can do it with a spray paint can if I want. So I think this is bad policy all around to touch what we've already done. It doesn't make any sense for a single-use request because somebody wants a sign bigger than what they can already put up. They can put up bigger than the standard commercial sign, or the standard political signs that you see, that you described. They're going to sacrifice the number that they can put up to do that. And want a slightly larger sign, we have the ability to do that. But just because you want to go bigger, we've seen this in the business districts before. We saw it with Lowe's when they came into town, and we've seen it with some of the other businesses, the restaurant that was there that ended up getting torn down, the buffet. Mm-hmm. They fought and fought. They wanted a bigger sign because they wanted one bigger than everybody next to them, and you're going to see the same exact thing with this. I think we stay with what we've got. I think it's worked out well, and everybody can put up their signs. They can put up a number of them. If they want a larger sign, they can do that. They sacrifice the number.
Mr. McDonald.
I think it's important to note that, I think, more that maybe this is a politician that's brought this up or someone running in a, fall election. But, I think it's important to note that we're also talking proportional regulation, not just due to one person's need. But I think that's it's good to note that we're talking much larger scale properties and proportional regulation to align, with the separate zoning codes that we have for that land already. And so I think it would make sense, understand your value in that, Mr. Holman, but, but I think, though one person has brought that up, I think it's maybe a little bit of a more broad issue than that. And frankly, when it comes to someone could display or advertise for whatever they'd like. Well, they can do that right now with a 24 square foot sign if they really want. I don't know that that makes a big difference on, on that size of sign. And, but I agree with some of what you said there.
One other point to what you said, some of these agricultural properties they may have 10 acres on their property, but the house is set along the frontage, and the front yard's really not much bigger than agricultural. But now you've got this sheet of plywood out in what looks like a residential lot, even though the property is zoned commercial, or I'm sorry, agricultural. So I think what we've got works, and I don't support making any changes to this.
Anyone else? All right. Next item on the agenda is 155th Street de-annexation or detachment by Kansas City. And I'll let Mr. Fearborn talk about that one.
Thank you, sir. To use a overused term, the long national nightmare is nearly over on this. The council who was here and our newer members may have seen some of this. In 2017, the bridge on 155th Street had been out for over 18 months. And 155th Street was kind of jointly, the south side of 155th Street is Raymore, north side is City of Kansas City. And so I met with Troy Schulte, and it was, when are you guys gonna fix this bridge? Because a whole lot of Raymore residents use this road. Get it? There's only 12 Kansas City residents who touch this road, and they probably don't go east much. We know a whole lot of them, because a lot of them are police officers for Kansas City or were police officers for Kansas City. And most of them are retired. Troy got it, and they immediately started to accept, we came to a cost share agreement with the City of Kansas City that we would join with them. It was $750,000 apiece to improve the road slightly and to rebuild a very good bridge on 155th Street. As part of the cost share agreements for both cities, the whereas clauses of those also indicated, because we requested it, because we have an enforcement problem up there with PD, we have a public works problem because they never get anything because it's basically almost out of the city. We said we would be willing, if you'll pay for half of the improvements that have to go here, we would love to take over this section of road. And Troy Schulte asked me at the time, is there anything else you want? Because they were in, let's get rid of infrastructure and property that we can't take care of properly at the time. Both cities very willingly and very quickly signed the agreement, did great work to get the bridge put in. Everybody's happy. So we then start writing, and I would add that during that process, Kansas City actually, that area is controlled in Kansas City by what's called the Longview Area Plan. Kansas City actually took out of the plan, wrote into it, we are going to be detaching this road, and Raymore's going to be taking it over, and so we're removing it from the Longview Plan and our transportation network. It actually made it to Kansas City's Planning and Zoning Commission. They passed it with a recommendation to the council on due pass, and then it disappeared. And nothing happened. We began writing Kansas City Public Works once a month for years, literally going, when's this gonna happen? Because obviously when you detach, we have to annex this thing in. And technically this is controlled by 71011 subsection 1 of state statute. Calls for a real easy process, doesn't have, because it's just a road, there's no doesn't have to go to any votes except for their council and our council. So shortly before we found out about the landfill issue, their Public Works Department, Mike Shaw, wrote us through one of his engineers and said Kansas City is no longer interested in detaching this. We're confused because legislation that had passed at Planning and Zoning disappears with no further word on it. And then 4 months later, we found out that Kansas City and the Monheisers were planning to put a landfill in the southeast corner of the city. Obviously, they would need a southern entrance into the landfill. That's why they wanted to keep 155th Street, or the north half of it. Landfill goes away. We reapproach Kansas City after they had the changeover in city managers. And very good meeting with the city manager. Took a little bit of time, but we were contacted 2 weeks ago to let us know that they had formulated the ordinance that would actually do their portion of this. So we're there, and they're doing it pretty quick. Their council has already passed the first reading. They do things a little weird. Council passes first reading and refers it to committee. Committee looks it over, recommends it back with any changes, and then the council passes it on second reading. So council has already passed first reading and referred it to the committee, and then they let us know, hey, would you all be willing to come down? So the mayor and I, chief of police, and Jonathan are going to be going down tomorrow morning at 9 to testify in favor of this and to remind them, this is about 9 years coming, guys, that you passed the first part of this. The ordinance, as we first saw the ordinance this morning, ordinance needed a couple of tweaks to it that they've already placed in there. That we are told that there's not going to be, the first three are actually tweaks that we would have put in too. They have to give it up before we can pass an ordinance taking it. We can't pass an ordinance. The state statute actually says concurrently, which is kind of confusing because somebody's got to give it up before somebody can take it. They got a little bit confused about that too. So as you might expect, in the first three sections of their ordinance, it is contingent on the city of Raymore actually annexing the property in. We'd have done the same thing. The last change was, and they keep forgetting this, it is, the statute calls for, once they de-annex, they have to let the Jackson County legislature, recorder of deeds, revenue director, all of those folks know that they have detached this. And then the last section actually said, and then once annexed, the city of Raymore will contact Cass County to do all of this. No. We're actually expanding into Jackson County. This does not change the county jurisdictional boundaries. So we will now, once we pass this, actually be a two-county jurisdiction finally. So kind of a neat deal. Yeah, by about half a road. But we will have control of something. You know, it is a bad public policy, and I'll probably be saying this tomorrow. It is bad public policy to have multiple jurisdictions in control of one piece of infrastructure. It leads to confusion. It leads to response issues. It leads to all of that. So this is good that this is, and of course, Kansas City couldn't respond on one of these things within 30 minutes if there's an accident up there to save their life, just by virtue of the fact that it's so far out. And we're up there all the time on that road, on the south side of the road. I promise we're never on the north side. So anyway, just wanted to report that out to the council. Good news for us. And we'll let you know next time you're going to see this will probably be an emergency read if it goes to their, because this is quick. The committee hears it tomorrow. There is the very real possibility that the council will actually finalize this for Kansas City on Thursday. If that happens, you'll have an emergency read in front of you all at your next legislative meeting. If they wait 2 weeks, which they sometimes do, then we'll have to put off until the June meeting because there'll be no meeting on Memorial Day. Any questions that we can answer for you all?
Mr. Holman?
Not a question, but a statement. So fantastic news, sir. We've been waiting for this for a long time. It really is good. For a number of reasons. Mr. Fearborn alluded to a couple of them. But when I started, the city, not in its entirety, but on all four sides of the city, we had co-owned roads. Lucy Webb on the south, was that the first one with Cass County?
Hubach Hill.
Hubach Hill, and we finally took that over first. Then when we did the improvements to Ward Road, we accepted, Cass County gave us the other half of that. So south and east, now the north piece, the only one that leaves is Kentucky. but there are multiple issues that can come up from this and from time to time do. Starting with Public Works. Do they plow half the road and we plow the other half? We have an agreement with Belton. They plow the north half, the south half. But if they get busy or there's problems, we ended up doing all of it or it doesn't get done, right? Same thing with patching potholes. Which side of the road is it on? Who's going to do it, right? Again, we have an agreement, but if they're busy doing something else, maybe we have to go out and do it ourselves. Law enforcement has a real tricky situation. I pulled this guy over because he was weaving and he was all over the road. Which side of the road was he on? Because that's Jackson County. You don't have jurisdiction there, right? So we're starting to take control of our own destiny with this step. It took a long time because Kansas City had other plans for this, but really good work to get this through. That's great, and I think it's going to hopefully lead to our road to the north that we envision someday and our connection to 150. We already own the north real estate that we need for that. We would have to secure the south piece and then this similar agreement with Kansas City. But it also shows that that agreement, while difficult, is possible now, right? Because they've agreed to this. So I think that's really bright for our future and us getting another outlet out of the city, especially with congestion that's on 49 highway. So
It would
well
be
done, sir.
very, very nice to have a quality outlet to the north out of this
Yes, sir.
city.
Well done.
Because I don't think that we can call Kelly or Peterson or Horridge metropolitan roads.
That's for sure. Anybody else have anything? Tom?
So to get an understanding, so we'll annex it over. It'll be the city's road, even though it's two counties. But we have total control of that because we take the whole road over, placing and whatever it needs to be.
That's correct, sir. And I would also add that Jackson County has a tidy little sum in their road and bridge fund. And I'm always willing to try to tap into another revenue source for the city, for sure.
Anyone else before we move on? Yes, Mr. McDonald.
I have a few questions. It's what are our east-west boundaries on that? Would be Kentucky?
It's going to be, hang on just one second, sir. So it will be right in between Kentucky and Kelly
Okay.
on the west side, and then all the way down just past Kurzwell Road on the east side, just to the east of Kurzwell Road on the east side.
Okay. And then maybe if you can, maybe enlighten us a little bit, you know, existing utilities, easements of that road, what does Kansas City have there? There's, you know, any future implications of that type stuff as we get down the road?
Kansas City retains all their easements and right-of-way. We retain all of our easements and right-of-way. And approval of crossing the road, which there are occasions where water has to cross that road, work needs to be done on that, those will not be held unreasonably. All contemplated and listed out in the agreement.
Okay. Then what, do we know what our projected absorbed annual cost is going to be for that? And then also any projected, you know, I think we all already know that 155th Street and County Line gets pretty busy already, right? And quality access to the north would be nice. But what's the city's thought on potential timeline for widening or major road improvements there?
We would not anticipate any widening until there's further developments up there. The maintenance that needs to be done right now, which we've talked to Kansas City a couple of times about, and they've ignored it, is just probably about 300 yards directly between the dam and Fox Ridge Drive. On the north side, the Kansas City side, there is deterioration of the road there. And it's going to need to be built up, just like on Hubach Hill. It's going to need to be built up and reinforced. Kansas City, there was no way they were going to pay for that. But that needs to be done. The road is obviously fairly new with Type 5 aggregate being used to do it. So major maintenance is not going to need to be done 8 years. We will have the normal pothole problems and that one problem. I anticipate the buildup. Was actually talking with Mr. Salisbury about this just a short time ago. The buildup on that one side may be a capital improvement project next year, maybe 2 years out to get to it. I would not anticipate a $25,000 project on that. So near term, $25,000 within the next 24 months. And as far as police department is concerned, they're already up there. So no additional, although I would anticipate the possibility of once again being able to sit radar up there. It's going to be a very interesting road when the 58 interchange goes down. We've seen an increase in traffic on it already with the improvement to the interchange on 155th Street. But when that goes down, that's going to be a major, although the cutoffs on it are probably going to be before you get farther east than Fox Ridge. The folks will be turning on Fox Ridge to get down into the city. That's probably going to be the main one, and Kentucky's going to become a little bit of a highway at that point in time. But minimal
Yeah, thank you.
to your question, sir.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Anyone else? Yep, looking forward to that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is charter review. So, won't you pass those down? Give you guys a couple over there to pass on. And yours. So this is section 14.8 of our charter, which talks about the Charter Review Commission. As you see, it says from time to time, but no less than 10 years. Our charter was adopted in 1997 and was reviewed again in 2008. And then again in 2016-17, so we're kind of at that decade level now for moving forward with another review. The process is somewhat described within that particular section. We will actually have a resolution that we'll be bringing before the council with many of the same outlines for the choices to be conducted for serving on the charter review. I know I've had at least one council member contact me and have interest, having served on the review in 2016-17. So I'm sure there will be others that are interested in serving on the Charter Review Commission. And like I said, we'll be outlining that for you here real soon with a resolution that talks about, it'll talk about recognize the Charter Review Authority, the establishment and role of the Charter Review Commission, the scope of the commission's responsibilities, and the resolution will include the council's timeline for that review process and presentation in order to get any amendments that are going to be made to the charter placed upon a ballot either in next August or next November, likely next November. Not this November, next November. So upon completion of that review, those recommendations will come to the council for approval and inclusion at that prescribed election. And with that, anybody have any questions? We're going to start the process. First, you'll see it as a resolution coming before you either next Monday or 2 weeks from Monday.
It'll actually be June 8th, sir.
Okay, perfect. All right. It'll be very similar to the last resolution. 16-27 was the last resolution, in case you want to look it up. But it'll be very similar to that one. Anyway, anybody have any questions about that? All right. If not, that concludes. Do we have any other business to come before us before we move on?
Not from staff, sir.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and adjourn from the work session, and we'll move into the Raymore Community Foundation. This is a little more formal in nature. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Raymore Community Foundation meeting for Monday, May the 4th, 2026. We'll call that meeting to order, and could I have the roll call, please?
Director McDonald,
Present.
Director Circo,
Present.
Director Burke.
Present.
Director Rowe.
Present.
Director Engert.
Present.
Director Holman.
Present.
Chairman Turnbow.
Present.
You have a quorum.
All right, and on that, under the approval of, the next item is approval of minutes for the February 24th. As you can see, we have this about once a year, and this will be for the election of officers anyway, so, but I will need a motion to approve the minutes of the February 24th meeting.
Your Honor.
Mr. Holman,
Sir, I move that we approve the minutes from the Raymore Community Foundation meeting on February 24th, 2025.
thank you, sir. Is there a second? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the February 24th, 2025 meeting. I'm going to ask Mr. Zur. Mr. Zur, what about the new members, the new directors that are now?
They were not in attendance. I'd suggest they abstain.
Okay. But we can pass it with a 4 to 2
You absolutely
vote?
can.
Okay, all right,
It's a majority of the quorum present.
all right. All right, so the motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the the February 24th, 2025 meeting. Could I have the roll call, please?
Director McDonald.
Abstain?
Director Circo.
Yes.
Director Burke.
Yes.
Director Rowe.
Abstain.
Director Engert.
Yes.
Director Holman.
Yes.
It passes 4-2. I'm sorry, 4-0-2.
402, motion carries. Okay.
Oh, that's right, he does. Yes. I apologize. Your Honor, I forgot to ask you what your vote was.
Do I vote? Oh, that's right, as a director, I vote yes. I'll vote yes.
Thank you.
All right,
5-0-2.
502. I forgot about that.
That's all right.
Little
Thank you for the
different.
clar-
Okay. So do we have minutes? Another set of minutes here?
That's all one set, sir, from,
Okay.
because we had the disbursement
right.
resolutions as a part of those minutes.
All right, excellent, thank you. All right, so now we'll move under new business. New business is for the election of officers. You want to give a staff report on that, please?
Thank you, sir. In addition to the staff report relative to election of officers, to just kind of bring our new members up to speed, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Murdoch to handle this from here. So
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of notes about the Raymore Foundation, since we didn't get that as a part of the orientation. It's essentially the charitable way that our residents can give back to the city, and then we can disperse those funds out primarily through 4 main areas. We do it through Legacy, through our Parks and Recreation Department, our Arts Commission, our Police Department, which is primarily Shop with a Cop, and then our Animal Shelter. And then our residents, if they do donate to the city through the foundation, they can also let us know exactly where they would like the funds. So we've had people who've donated funds that they wanted strictly used for a park bench, for example, or they wanted it going strictly to the animal shelter, those kinds of things. So that's the way that the foundation operates. Tonight, you have the new business of election of new officers. I do want to make sure that you understand we will, or I wanted to let you know, we will meet one other time this year, a second meeting for the disbursement of the Shop with the Cop funds and stuff. We're going to do that the very first work session of August, just to let you know, because we have a couple of items that we'll need to take care of. The audit team at Dana Cole actually just got our forms done today. We actually signed those today. That's why you don't have it in front of you tonight, okay? The election of officers, customarily, the mayor is the chairman of the foundation. The council, Mayor Pro Tem is the vice chairman of the foundation. You select a member at large to be your secretary. Last year, that was Director Burke. So if he would like to continue with that, or if somebody new wanted to fulfill that role. And then our finance director serves as the treasurer for this particular foundation. So if you wanted to continue with that particular slate, there is a motion that you could make that would nominate those particular individuals. You can do that all as one motion. You can motion to nominate all 4 positions at once. That's fine. The only thing that we would ask is the 3 elected members who are nominated that you do accept those nominations tonight. The nominations don't require a second, and then it's a majority vote. Of course, you can nominate other people if you would like as well. That's totally fine as well. So, sir, I did type that up if somebody wanted to do that.
okay.
But if anybody would like to do other nominations, I'll turn it back over to Chairman Turnbow.
Okay, well, thank you. You heard what he said. I don't have anything to add or take away from that. It is a pretty simple process, and it does, we have to have this foundation in order to have a 501c3 for purposes of that. You want to do the motion, Tom? Before that, is there any discussion before we move into the motion? Okay, go ahead.
Now, is this the list going into the new year of the officers, or are we gonna,
The motion that's on that sheet of paper is reflective of what it would be for this upcoming year. It has you in the role of vice chairman, that kind of thing, so.
all right, I move to nominate Mayor Turnbow as president of the Raymore Community Foundation, Tom Circo as vice president of the Raymore Community Foundation, Joseph Burke as secretary of the Raymore Community Foundation, and finance director Elisa Williams as treasurer of the Raymore Community Foundation. All nominations, individuals need to be, I don't have to.
You don't need that part, sorry.
I'm
I
just
did that
going
just to
reading.
help out.
I like it. All right, is there a second? Is-
It does not require a second. We just need to make sure that the three that are nominated, yourself,
Oh, okay. All right.
Mr. Burke and Mr. Circo, accept the nominations.
I accept.
Yeah, accept. All right, anything else?
All you got to do is vote on it. Oh, yeah, we do need to ask if there are any other nominations.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? All right. Do we need a roll call?
Yes.
Director Circo,
Yes.
Director Burke,
Yes.
Director Rowe,
Yes.
Director Engert,
Yes.
Director Holman,
Yes.
Chairman Turnbow.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. That's all we have on this particular agenda this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn from the Raymore Community Foundation?
Sir, I move that we adjourn the Raymore Community Foundation meeting for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.